Hello and good morning. My name is Dennis Rowcliffe. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Welcome. Thank you. We're glad you're here with us this morning at First Unitarian of Oakland. We are working on becoming an intentionally multi-generational, multiracial, multicultural, inclusive, and anti-oppressive religious community. You are welcome here. If you are new, we invite you to fill out the orange newcomer card, which can be found at the greeters table in the foyer or at the welcome table in Vente Hall next door. You may also fill out the card online. There's a link to it on our website. Doing this helps us to help you explore what this community offers and to find ways to participate. You can drop the card in the offering basket, leave it at the welcome table after the service in Vente Hall, or you can hand it to Emily Stoper, who is right here. Now I'm going to do the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land and the peoples who belong to this land, the Lashan Ohlone peoples. Our church, our institutions, and our homes are occupying their lands, ancestral and current. We acknowledge that the lands were stolen from the Ohlone peoples, who have an ancestral relationship with this land, the plants, the animals, and the water, for millennia, continuous to the present day. Ohlone people are still here. In solidarity with all indigenous peoples and their rights to self-determination and justice, we commit to working toward accountability for the theft, dispossession, and resulting trauma Native peoples continue to face. We commit to being active partners toward the healing of this intergenerational trauma, which persists to this day. Amen. So may it be.
Good morning. And now we'll do the chalice lighting words. And these are the words, you see them on the chalice. Say them along with me, please. And if you know the hand motions, do them too. We light this chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism. May it remind us of the divine spark in all of creation, of the power of love to heal what is broken and to be grateful for life's blessings each day.
As Laurel lights the peace candle, I offered an excerpt from Making Peace, a poem by Denise Levertov. A voice from the dark cried out, "The poets must give us imagination of peace, to oust the intense, familiar imagination of disaster. Peace, not only the absence of war." Peace, say, peace is possible. As we light the Black Lives Matter candle, hear the words of John Lewis, civil rights legend. Ours is not the struggle of one day, 1 week, or 1 year. Ours is not the struggle of one judicial appointment or presidential term. Ours is the struggle of a lifetime, or maybe many lifetimes. Each of us in every generation must do our part. Together we say, Black Lives Matter.
During our service today, two of our members, Emily Stoper and Jane Facente, will share stories of their work with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. It's a small and mighty organization that for 84 years now has partnered with 70 different grassroots groups around the world working for justice. The president of the UU Service Committee, Reverend Mary Catherine Morn, offers these words of hope. There is so much happening in the world that causes me to wrestle with despair. Despair simply cannot have the last word. Our partners, facing seemingly insurmountable odds, use courage, strength, and wisdom to advance creative solutions to some of today's greatest challenges. And we are part of that steadfast community of caring friends who join hands with them. So friends, in one voice, let us say, "Come, let us worship together." And our opening hymn, our gathering song, is Gather Round for Freedom. So please rise and body your spirit and join in.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Melcher. I'm the Director of Religious Education Exploration.
Today I
We
have
have a slide presentation story, and from wherever you are sitting, if you can't see it, go ahead and move. And then this is a story about working together. Of people of all ages, everybody has something to contribute. And surprisingly, things can get done.
Today I have a story for you called The Parrot and the Eagles. This story is adapted from the Chakata Tales, a collection of Buddhist stories from India. Once upon a time, a long time ago in an ancient forest, there lived a little green parrot. This parrot loved the forest. She loved the great big trees and the dappled sunshine. She loved her friends, the sloth and the anteater. She loved flying through the forest canopy and looking for yummy fruit in the branches. Sometimes, when she was feeling adventurous, she would even fly up and out of the forest. From there, she could see the river, which ran through the valley like a silk ribbon, and the mountains, which surrounded the forest, their tops disappearing into the clouds. Sturdy goats lived in the mountains, and giant eagles built their homes there. One day, the parrot woke up from a nap and found that her nest was surrounded in smoke. The forest was on fire. Quickly, the parrot flew up very high, and looking down saw that the fire was spreading quickly. Soon it would consume the whole forest. "Oh dear," said a deep voice next to the parrot. "That is very sad." Parrot looked over and saw it was a giant eagle perched on a nearby mountain ledge who had spoken. "It's a shame, really. It was such a nice forest," continued the eagle. "But don't worry, little parrot. You can stay in the mountains. Here you will be safe." "But my friends," said the parrot, "sloth and anteater and all the monkeys and deer, they can't escape. What will happen to them?" The eagle shrugged a bit with his large wings. The parrot soared above the forest, fretting as the fire spread, and then she got an idea. She dove down into the river and then flew back up again high, right over the fire. She shook her wings, and a few drops of water fell onto the flames with a hiss. Quickly, she dove back into the river and repeated the process again and again. Dive, splash, fly, hiss. With all this strange action, it caught the attention of some of the other eagles, who joined the first eagle on the mountain perch. After watching several rounds of the parrot diving and flying, putting out a little flame here and there, one of the eagles shouted, "That will never work. Can't you see it's useless? Your wings are too small. You should give up." Without slowing down, the parrot shouted back, "I may be small, but we're not small together. Together we can stop the fire. Will you help me?" The eagle shuffled nervously. I mean, sure, it was a nice forest, but it wasn't like they lived there. And all this diving into rivers and flying over flames looked a little dangerous. The mountain ledge was safe. Then one of the eagles dove off the ledge and into the river below. Just like when she caught a fish there, She rose out of the river, her wide wings shimmering with water, and splashed it down onto the flames below. Hiss! Yeah! Cried the parrot, and she dove back into the river herself. One by one, the other eagles followed, diving into the river and carrying water to put out the flames. It took all day and into the night, but finally the last orange flame disappeared and the smoke vanished into the clouds over the mountains. The exhausted little green parrot slumped against her new eagle friend. "See," said the parrot, "I knew we were not small together." "You were right," said the eagle. "Together we were bigger than we ever imagined." The end.
Just a little food for thought. And we're going to now sing the children out. And the children and parents can come out with me. And we got some other activities planned. And everybody else can sing along. If you want to stand, you can do that. Go now in peace.
Good morning. As the severity of crises and conflicts grow and deepen around the globe, the human rights work of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee commits to steadfast solidarity with its frontline partners, meaning we are in it for the long haul. Some large human rights organizations are giving up in places they cite as hopeless and unsolvable, places where humanitarian crises are long-standing and complex. But the path forward is not linear and calls for USC to remain steadfast in centering the experience of those directly impacted by oppression. Many of our partners choose to stay in dangerous homelands, feeling supported not only with needed resources, but with our trust in their power to find solutions. For the past 3 years, I have been drawn to partner groups led by young people who want to impact the script of their future world. Their youthful energy, creativity, persistence, and stubbornness to get to the table around issues of immigration, homophobia, and climate change is hopeful for us all. For over a decade, USC has worked with dozens of grassroots partners pursuing action on climate justice. We work alongside our partners by listening to their needs, delivering funding, research, advocacy, and other means of support at just the right time. I would like to highlight the remarkable work of the Pacific Island students fighting climate change, whose tagline is, "We are not drowning, we are fighting." They have been in the forefront of youth involvement in the climate crisis movement worldwide. In 2018, UUSC hosted an historic forum in Anchorage on First and Indigenous peoples impacted by climate-forced displacement. People came from Alaska, Bangladesh, Louisiana, and the Pacific Islands to share stories and possible solutions to the harsh impacts of climate change on their homelands. The story of the Pacific Island students, like you can see on the screen, started the next year in 2019, when 27 last-year law students from 8 island communities at the University of the South Pacific on the Solomon Islands conceived a project for an environmental law course. The journey of the students began with campaigning at the Pacific Island Forum to consider their legal action proposal. The Forum is the political and economic organization whose 18 members span the North and South Pacific Islands, including Australia and New Zealand. The students were frustrated by worsening climate disasters in their low-lying communities, where First and Indigenous people feel the acute impacts of losing homes, culture, livelihoods, local species, and infrastructure, and also feeling left out of government plans for relocation or adaptation. When the Pacific Island Forum noted their proposal without putting it on an action agenda, their frustration became the catalyst that led to a landmark UN resolution 4 years later. They had been developing a legal approach to the impacts of climate change with the goal of getting the UN to pass a resolution calling for an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice, which has passed this last March in 2023. This noteworthy achievement was heard worldwide. And in the US, the young woman president of the climate students, there's a slide for that, was interviewed on the PBS NewsHour. Although not legally binding, a favorable opinion should make it easier to hold polluting countries legally accountable with possible compensation to victim countries. Other advisory opinion benefit could cement consensus on science and climate change and integrate climate law and human rights law. How did our Unitarian Universalist Service Committee aid this group of students? Just 2 years after they formed, when the students had no consistent funding, UUSC listened, took a chance on their vision, providing funding with a grant for them to attend the UN Climate Conference COP26 in Glasgow, where serious support for their campaign took off. As they continue their lobbying efforts, we await the opinion from the International Court of Justice. A longtime partner told UUSC that, quote, "It is rare to find a funder who also works alongside us in this struggle for justice," unquote. Working alongside others strengthens connections and recognizes our shared values, values that drew me to a UU church 44 years ago and to UUSC in 2012. Actively supporting this organization makes me feel proud to be a Unitarian Universalist. And I'm really grateful to be able to share this story with all of you today. Thank you.
Okay, lots of stuff up here. All right. So this is the part of the service that everyone loves. It's the time to have a brief talk with both friends and strangers. It's short, so please listen for the piano and the singing bowl, which are your signs to return promptly to your seats. You'll have lots more time for chat and coffee hour right after the service.
Choir, you add so much beauty to our services. Thank you. Brene Brown is an American professor, author, and podcast host, known for her work on shame, vulnerability, and leadership. She wrote this about courage. Courage is a heart word. The root of the word courage is cor, the Latin word for heart. In one of its earliest forms, the word courage meant to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. Over time, this definition has changed, and today we typically associate courage with heroic and brave deeds. But in my opinion, this definition fails to recognize the inner strength and level of commitment required for us to actually speak honestly and openly about who we are and about our experiences, good and bad. Speaking from our hearts is what I think of as ordinary courage. Daring greatly means the courage to be vulnerable. It means to show up and be seen, to ask for what you need, to talk about what you're feeling, to have the hard conversations. Staying vulnerable is a risk we have to take if we want to experience connection. So this is a risk that many of us in this congregation are taking in the small group sessions that are part of the healing work being guided by the Hope for Us coaches, Reverends Connie and Sam. I applaud your courage as you share your stories, your hopes, and your fears. Now I invite you to share your joys and sorrows. In a moment, I'll ring the singing bell, and you're welcome to speak out loud the joys you would like to celebrate with us today, as well as the sorrows you carry in your heart this morning. And I include those of you who are on Zoom as well. An embracing meditation. For all the words that have been spoken and those that remain in the silent sanctuary of our hearts, let us say together, we hold them in our care. I now invite you into a moment of centering and silence, followed by a brief pastoral prayer. Great mystery known by many names. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, divine spark, God, Goddess, Gaia, Mother, Father, beyond all naming, that wondrous love, flowing and glowing radiant within each of us, flowing between us, among us, and beyond us, connecting us to all that is, and all that was, and all that ever will be. We give thanks for this precious day, knowing that each morning when we awaken, we are given the gift of another day. The simple gift of our breath that keeps us alive and able to spend our energy, our time, our treasure, our talent in ways that enhance the values that we hold dear as we work together to build the world we dream of. May we take to heart the inspiration of the UU Service Committee, the mantra that we are not drowning, we are fighting. May we continue our good fights for justice, our challenging anti-racism work, all the ways that we join with other people to save our planet so that the earth will be singing. And to model within the walls of this sanctuary the change that we want to see. May we accept our gifts with grace and gratitude and use them to bless the world in the spirit of love. Amen. This is our song.
Well, I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to tell you about an inspiring experience I had with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, UUSC. Yes, another one. A lot of you have heard me and Jane Facente speak about this amazing organization. Maybe you remember that it began by helping refugees escape the Nazis during World War II and eventually expanded to do human rights work all over the world. The UUSC is led by a UU minister and supported by UU congregations. It works through partners, which are frontline grassroots organizations in many parts of the world. UUSC gives these groups money, technical assistance, publicity. It lobbies for them. It does research for them. It does a lot of work defending people who are oppressed because of their identity, meaning their race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, and so on. Another major emphasis is helping people who are displaced by climate change, war, and poverty. I had the privilege of traveling with a group of UUSC donors to Cuba last February to meet with some of our amazing partners from Central America. Now, in a service in America, I described to you the work done in Guatemala by one of our partners, Pope Noy. Today, I want to tell you a bit about some of what our partners are doing in Honduras. Now, you may be wondering, why were we meeting these Hondurans in Cuba? The answer is simple and shocking. Because it was too dangerous for UUSC people from the US to visit them in their own countries. Anyone who engages in organizations that challenge the status quo in Honduras is taking a huge risk. It's common for change activists to be murdered, sometimes by the police themselves and the military. The police and the courts just look the other way when activists are murdered. I'm sorry to say that the US actually gives financial and other support to the military and police. Yeah, the government, the military, and the police are all heavily involved in drug trafficking. Honduras is a narco state. We met with leaders of 3 groups from Honduras. I'll tell you a bit about one of those groups. I don't have time for all 3. The group I'm going to speak about is the Women's Forum. Honduras is a very patriarchal country. It has the highest rate of femicide in Latin America. What's the definition of femicide? The killing of a woman because she's a woman. The Women's Forum is a national coalition of diverse feminist organizations. It works on a range of issues, including prevention of violence against women, increasing labor rights, and gaining access to contraception. It gives legal counseling, emotional support, and refuge homes to women who face domestic violence, sex trafficking, and sexual violence. It even helps women who are looking for their relatives somewhere in the migration route to the US. The Women's Forum works with the National Coalition Against Impunity to begin to change the system so that corrupt institutions can't continue to get away with murder, intimidation, seizure of property, and so on. Now, the situation in Honduras may sound pretty hopeless, but to my surprise, in 2022, a socialist woman named Xiomara Castro was elected president of Honduras by a large majority. But election is just the beginning. She's still struggling to make meaningful changes in the face of a hostile military, police, courts, and the drug cartels. She was unable to block the creation of a commission to assess the contents of mass media and social media, which in Honduras is a clear threat to freedom of speech. Now that brings me to the second Honduran organization whose leader we met. Radio Progreso, or Radio Progreso, is a national media organization that employs about 30 correspondents and broadcasts nationally. It recently did a survey of the whole population that provided shocking data on the amount of unemployment, street crime, corruption, and so on. It found that 2/3 of the population likes the new Xiomara Castro government. But in spite of that, 46% of the population would like to emigrate, 46%. Radio Progreso works for amnesty for the numerous political prisoners and for a new way of nominating Supreme Court judges. It reaches 3.5 million people out of a population of 10.4 million. That's pretty good. Most of the people of Honduras are extremely poor and oppressed. But with help from organizations like the Women's Forum and Radio Progreso, there's hope for them. The small number of people who risked their lives running Radio Progreso played a major role in the election of the new president, Xiomara Castro. The Women's Forum mobilizes millions of women to fight for their own rights. UUSC helps sustain and empowers several activist groups in Honduras. We also work with many groups in the United States, especially people of color, people at the border, and people whose communities are under immediate threat from climate change. But can organizations like UUSC really make a difference in this tormented world that we live in? Well, I'm going to give you a quote from Rebecca Solnit, a writer and activist, big favorite of mine. And here's the quote. Hope locates itself in the premise that we don't know what will happen, and that in the spaciousness of uncertainty is room to act. When you recognize uncertainty, you recognize that you may be able to influence the outcomes, you alone or you in concert with a few dozen or several million others. Hope is an embrace of the unknown and the unknowable. It's an alternative to the certainty of both optimists and pessimists. Optimists think it will all be fine without our involvement. Pessimists take the opposite position. So their position is nothing helps. Both excuse themselves from acting. That's the end of the quote. I believe that whatever we do matters, even though we may never know how and when it may matter. If we have the means, it's actually a blessing to contribute in some way to enable everyone in the world to lead full and free lives. When I started thinking about the best approach to asking you to donate to UUSC, so many reasons poured out of my mind that I had to shorten the list. It's the best way to know, it's the best way I know to experience my core value, the worth and dignity of every human being, our UU first principle. All over the world, UUSC projects are driven by the field, not by the funders. Our approach starts with the grassroots organizations and networks. The work comes out of their needs and is consistent with their cultural values. UUSC helps impoverished communities adapt to the destructive effects of climate change from the Bayou to the South Pacific. And it supports groups that work politically at the national and international level to persuade the powerful to respect human rights and to reduce the emissions that cause climate change. UUSC supports groups that stand up against brutal tyranny in places that are ignored by the rest of the world. UUSC helps our partners to overcome poverty. UUSC, and listen to this, UUSC has earned the highest possible rating, 4 out of 4 stars, from Charity Navigator, which is America's largest independent evaluator of nonprofit organizations. This 4-star exceptional rating indicates sound fiscal management and a commitment to accountability and transparency. I could go on, but I'm going to go straight to the point, which is there are 3 ways you can donate to UUSC. 3, yeah. Number 1, drop a check made out to UUSC in the collection plate as it goes by, and the usher will give your check to Jane or Gary Facente after the service. Number 2, watch the screen while the plate is being passed and donate to the link or the QR code on the screen. Number 3, look for Gary or Jane in Wente Hall right after the service during coffee hour. When you see them, you can donate by cash, check, credit card, on your phone, lots of ways to donate. And here's the amazing part. If you donate $150 or more, Your donation will be matched in 3 ways: by the Shelter Rock UU congregation on Long Island, and by an anonymous donor, and possibly by another anonymous donor who has promised to match the first $1,000 worth only of gifts of $150 or more. So, if you donate quickly, your $150 could generate as much as $600 for UUSC. $300 could generate $800, and so on. So keep in mind, $150 generates matching. Of course, we welcome any amount you can give. Maybe the strongest reason to give is the spiritual benefit to yourself. Any donation given from your heart represents a spiritual link between you and all the struggling peoples who will benefit from it. Thank you.
There's a hurting in my family. There is sorrow in my town. There is panic all across the nation. And there is panic the whole world around. I am hoping and I am waiting, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly, and may the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though they burn our eyes. I am open and I am willing.
Give me a desert to hold my fear. Give me a sunset to hold my wonder. Give me an ocean to hold my tear.
I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change.
Every day, we face a lot of asks from our rural community, from the unrelenting violence of wars to climate change to unmet human needs in our own communities. I can be pulled to give in to despair, but I choose this church on Sunday mornings with its music, reflections, rituals, sermons, poetry, where I am often moved to a place in myself where I free my mind from naming the struggles to knowing the possibilities for restoration, healing, change, and gratitude. We need to strengthen and enliven places that do that for us. There are many possible ways for you to participate and support this congregation. After today's service, we are offering our monthly Exploring Membership class. It is a chance to get to know each other better, learn a bit about our church and congregation, and discuss what it means to be a member. If you have already been participating and feel ready to join, we will have the membership book available there to sign. The class will be meeting in the Star King room starting at 11:45. This coming Tuesday evening, the board will hold its monthly meeting on Zoom. There is a 15-minute open comment period at 6:45, and the meeting will begin at 7. All members and friends are welcome to attend. Also, the Committee on Shared Ministry is offering an opportunity to share your current evaluation of the church. A link to the survey form and more information is in the weekly Chalice email. Now we come to our invitation to generosity. Will the ushers please come forward to receive the offering? If this is your first time here, please feel free to let the basket pass. Your presence here is a gift. We are glad that you have joined us.
Thank you, Cynthia. And now will you join in the words that you see on the screen to bless our offering? To the work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love we call community, we dedicate ourselves and these our offerings.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And now for the benediction. We are not done. Don't be such an optimist that you think all will go well without your contributions. Don't be such a pessimist that you think nothing can be done to make the world a better place. Go forth in hope. Know that even in this scary and uncertain world, you can make a difference. Whoops. This one, there it is. Okay. I really have.